Before streaming, before TikTok dances, before Broadway movie remakes became nostalgia events, there was one musical that turned the streets of New York into a stage of love, anger, rhythm, heartbreak, and tragedy. That movie was West Side Story. Released in 1961, West Side Story was not just another musical. It was bold, colorful, emotional, and painful. It took the spirit of Romeo and Juliet and placed it inside a modern world of rival gangs, cultural tension, forbidden love, and young people fighting for a place to belong. The Jets snapped their fingers through the streets. The Sharks moved with pride, fire, and sharpness. Tony and Maria fell in love across a divide that everyone around them wanted to keep alive. Anita danced with fury and confidence. Bernardo carried the pride of the Sharks. Riff led the Jets with restless energy. And behind the music, the dancing, and the romance, there was a story about prejudice, violence, and dreams destroyed too young. But now, in 2026, 65 years have passed since West Side Story first arrived on screen. The songs still live. The dances still move. The colors still shine. The final tragedy still hurts. But the people who made the original film unforgettable have changed forever. Some of the stars are still with us. Some became legends. Some stepped away from the spotlight. Some passed away decades ago. And some recent losses have made the 1961 cast feel even more like a living memory slowly fading into history. So in this video, we are going one by one through the cast of West Side Story, remembering who they played, what happened to them after the film, who is still alive in 2026, and which stars we sadly lost after 65 years. Number 1 is Natalie Wood, who played Maria. Natalie Wood was the emotional face of West Side Story. As Maria, she played a young woman caught between family loyalty and first love. Maria is Bernardo's younger sister, protected by the Sharks and expected to follow the rules of her community. But when she sees Tony at the dance, everything changes. In one moment, she steps into a love story that is beautiful, impossible, and doomed from the beginning. Wood gave Maria softness, innocence, and emotional intensity. Even though her singing voice was dubbed, her performance still carried the feeling of the songs. Her face told the story of a girl discovering love for the first time and then discovering loss just as quickly. Maria is not a passive character. She begins as hopeful and excited, but by the end, she has seen what hatred can do. She loses her brother. She loses Tony. She loses the dream of a future that seemed possible for only a moment. Her final scene remains one of the most powerful moments in the film because she stands before both gangs and forces them to look at the destruction they created. Natalie Wood was already famous before West Side Story. She had starred in Rebel Without a Cause and Splendor in the Grass, and by 1961, she was one of Hollywood's most recognizable young actresses. But Maria gave her a place in musical movie history. Sadly, Natalie Wood died in 1981 at only 43 years old. Her death remains one of Hollywood's most discussed tragedies, and her passing added a deep sadness to every later viewing of West Side Story. In 2026, Maria is gone in real life, but on screen she remains forever young, forever standing on the fire escape, forever singing to a love that could not survive the world around it. Number 2 is Richard Beymer, who played Tony. Richard Beymer played Tony, the former Jet who falls in love with Maria. Tony is the Romeo figure of West Side Story. He has left the center of gang life behind, or at least he wants to believe he has. He works at Doc's drugstore and tells Riff that he feels something important is coming. He does not know that the feeling is Maria. Beymer brought a gentle, dreamlike quality to Tony. He was not as aggressive as the Jets around him. He seemed like someone trying to escape the old neighborhood patterns, someone who wanted a different life, but was still connected to the people who shaped him. Tony's tragedy is that he believes love can rise above everything. When he meets Maria, he imagines a future beyond gang rivalry, beyond ethnic hatred, beyond violence. But the world around them is too angry, too wounded, and too quick to destroy what it does not understand. After West Side Story, Richard Beymer continued acting and later became known to another generation through Twin Peaks, where he played Benjamin Horne. He also moved into filmmaking and documentary work, choosing a more independent and personal path rather than staying only inside traditional Hollywood. As of 2026, Richard Beymer is still alive. That makes him one of the most important surviving stars from the original West Side Story. For fans, that is deeply emotional. Tony, the young man who sang about something coming, is still represented by an actor who lived long enough to see the film become a permanent classic. Natalie Wood is gone, but Richard Beamer remains as one of the living faces of that tragic love story. Number 3 is Russ Tamblyn, who played Riff. Russ Tamblyn played Riff, the leader of the Jets. Riff is fast, sharp, restless, and full of energy. He is Tony's best friend and the person who pulls him back toward the gang conflict. Riff believes in the Jets. He believes in the territory. He believes in loyalty. And he believes that the Sharks must be challenged. Tamblyn was a natural dancer and acrobat, and that physical ability made Riff unforgettable. He did not just act the role. He moved like the character. His body carried the tension, swagger, and explosive youth of the Jets. Riff's tragedy is that he cannot see beyond the fight. He wants Tony beside him. He wants the gang to stay strong. He wants to prove something, but the thing he is trying to prove leads directly to violence. His death at the Rumble is one of the turning points of the film. Once Riff dies, the story crosses a line it cannot return from. Before West Side Story, Russ Tamblyn had already appeared in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and earned an Oscar nomination for Peyton Place. After the film, he continued working across movies and television, and later gained a cult following through Twin Peaks. As of 2026, Russ Tamblyn is still alive. That makes him one of the major surviving stars from the original movie. For fans, Riff's survival through Tamblyn feels powerful because Riff was one of the film's most alive characters. He moved with electricity. He snapped, kicked, leapt, danced, and fought like he was burning through youth too quickly. And after 65 years, the actor who gave him that fire is still with us. Number 4 is Rita Moreno, who played Anita. Rita Moreno gave West Side Story one of its greatest performances. As Anita, she was passionate, funny, fierce, loyal, and heartbreaking. She was Bernardo's girlfriend and Maria's closest confidant. She understood love, pride, desire, and survival in a way Maria was only beginning to learn. Anita is unforgettable because she is not one thing. She is glamorous and practical. She is playful and wounded. She loves Bernardo, but she also sees the dangers of pride and violence around him. She sings America with sharp humor and confidence, but later, after Bernardo's death, her pain becomes almost unbearable. Moreno's performance won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, making history and turning Anita into one of the most iconic musical characters ever filmed. But behind the glamour, the role also carried complicated history. Moreno later spoke about problems with representation, makeup, and offensive lyrics in the original production. That makes her legacy even more important. She was part of a film that became beloved, but she also lived through the ways Hollywood treated Puerto Rican identity in that era. What makes Rita Moreno extraordinary is that she did not disappear into one classic role. She built one of the greatest careers in entertainment history, winning an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. She remained active across stage, film, and television for decades, and she returned to the West Side Story legacy in Steven Spielberg's 2021 version as Valentina and as an executive producer. As of 2026, Rita Moreno is still alive. She is not only one of the last surviving stars of West Side Story. She is one of the last living legends of Hollywood's golden musical era. For fans, Anita remains unforgettable because Moreno gave her fire, dignity, and pain. 65 years later, her performance still feels alive. Number 5 is George Chakiris, who played Bernardo. George Chakiris played Bernardo, the leader of the Sharks and Maria's older brother. Bernardo is proud, protective, angry, and deeply aware of how his community is treated. He does not trust the Jets. He does not trust Tony. He does not want Maria pulled into a world that could hurt her. But his pride and anger also push the story toward violence. Chakiris gave Bernardo elegance and intensity. His dancing was sharp, controlled, and powerful. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was. In America, his chemistry with Rita Moreno helped create one of the film's most famous musical numbers. In the Rumble, his presence becomes darker and more dangerous. Bernardo is not just a gang leader. He is a man trying to protect identity, territory, and dignity in a city that does not fully welcome him. That makes his conflict with the Jets more than teenage rivalry. It becomes part of a larger story about belonging. George Chakiris won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his performance. That made West Side Story one of the rare musicals where both major supporting performers won Oscars. After the film, Chakiris continued acting in movies, television, and stage productions. He also moved into music for a period and later retired from regular acting, eventually becoming known for other creative work. As of 2026, George Chakiris is still alive. That makes him one of the major surviving stars from the original film. For fans, Bernardo remains a powerful memory. He was proud, flawed, protective, and doomed. And after 65 years, the actor who brought him to life remains one of the last living links to the shark side of the story. Number 6 is Simon Oakland, who played Lieutenant Schrank. Simon Oakland played Lieutenant Schrank, the police officer who tries to control the streets where the Jets and Sharks fight. Schrank is an uncomfortable character because he represents authority, but not fairness. He is supposed to keep order, yet his words and behavior reveal prejudice. He does not truly understand or respect the young people he is dealing with. He sees them as problems to be managed rather than human beings shaped by poverty, fear, and discrimination. Oakland gave Schrank a hard, cynical edge. His scenes are important because they show that the conflict is not only between two teenage gangs. The adult world around them is also broken. The police, the neighborhood, the social system, and the cultural tensions all help create the pressure that destroys Tony and Maria's dream. Simon Oakland had a long career as a character actor in film and television. He appeared in many major projects and was known for playing tough, authoritative men. He died in 1983 at the age of 68. In 2026, Schrank remains one of the film's most uncomfortable supporting figures. He reminds viewers that West Side Story was never just a romantic musical. It was also a story about a society that failed its young people. Number 7 is Ned Glass, who played Doc. Ned Glass played Doc, the owner of the drugstore where Tony works. Doc is one of the few adult characters who seems to genuinely care about the young people around him. He is tired, worried, and sad. He sees what is happening between the Jets and Sharks, and he understands that the violence is leading nowhere good. Doc is not powerful enough to stop the tragedy. That is part of what makes him heartbreaking. He is a witness. He tries to reason with the boys. He tries to protect Tony. He tries to hold on to some idea of decency in a neighborhood full of anger. Ned Glass brought warmth and sadness to the role. His face carried the look of a man who had seen too much. He was not glamorous, but he was real. In a movie filled with dance and heightened emotion, Doc helped ground the story. Glass had a long career in film and television, often playing memorable supporting characters. He died in 1984 at the age of 78. In Steven Spielberg's 2021 adaptation, the role of Doc was reimagined through Valentina, played by Rita Moreno. That change gave the story a new emotional connection to the original film. But in the 1961 version, Ned Glass's Doc remains the old man watching a tragedy unfold, knowing the young people will not listen until it is too late. Number 8 is William Bramley, who played Officer Krupke. William Bramley played Officer Krupke, the policeman connected to one of the film's most famous comic numbers, G. Officer Krupke. Krupke represents another part of the adult system around the Jets. In the song, the boys mock the way adults explain juvenile delinquency. They joke about judges, social workers, psychiatrists, and police officers, turning their own broken lives into dark comedy. That is what makes the number so clever. On the surface, it is funny. But underneath, it shows how these boys are passed from one institution to another without anyone truly helping them. Bramley's presence as Krupke gave the Jets a specific authority figure to tease and resist. He was not as harsh as Schrank, but he belonged to the same adult world that could not solve the neighborhood's problems. William Bramley had played Krupke in the original Broadway production before appearing in the film, making him one of the performers who helped carry the role from stage to screen. He died in 1985 at the age of 57. Today, Officer Krupke remains part of one of the most memorable numbers in the movie. The actor is gone, but the song still lands because the frustration behind the comedy still feels real. Number 9 is Tucker Smith, who played Ice. Tucker Smith played Ice, one of the Jets and one of the film's strongest dancers. Ice becomes especially important after Riff's death. In the number Cool, He tries to calm the Jets and keep the gang under control. The song is a masterpiece of tension. The boys are boiling with anger, grief, and fear, but Ice tells them to stay cool, to hold it together, to control themselves before everything explodes. Smith's performance in Cool is one of the great dance moments in the film. He brings control, precision, and intensity. His character is not the loudest Jet, but in that moment, he becomes the one trying to keep the group from falling apart. Tucker Smith had a background in dance and performance, and West Side Story became his most famous screen role. Like many dancers in the film, he helped make the movie's movement feel dangerous and emotional, not just decorative. Sadly, Tucker Smith died in 1988 at the age of 52 after battling cancer. His death came too early, and for fans who love the dance side of West Side Story, his loss remains meaningful. Ice may not be as famous as Tony, Maria, Anita, or Bernardo, but his performance helped define the physical power of the Jets. Number 10 is Tony Mordente, who played Action. Tony Mordente played Action, one of the most intense members of the Jets. Action is hot-tempered, aggressive, and always ready to fight. He represents the part of the gang that cannot slow down, cannot listen, and cannot walk away. If Riff is the leader and Ice is the controlled presence, Action is the spark that can set everything on fire. Mordente had a deep connection to West Side Story. He appeared in the original Broadway production as Arab before playing Action in the 1961 film. He was also famously connected to Chita Rivera, who originated Anita on Broadway, and their relationship became part of West Side Story history. After the film, Mordente moved into directing and built a major television career behind the camera. He directed many episodes of well-known shows and became one of the cast members who successfully transformed from performer to director. Tony Mordente died in 2024 at the age of 88. His passing was a recent and emotional loss for West Side Story fans because he was one of the key links between the original Broadway production and the 1961 movie. Action was a young man who could not cool down, but Mordente himself lived a long creative life across stage, film, and television. Number 11 is David Winters, who played Arab. David Winters played Arab, another memorable Jet. Arab is part of the group identity that makes the Jets feel like more than background dancers. Each Jet has a name, a rhythm, an attitude, and a place inside the gang. Winters brought energy and skill to that world. Like Tony Mordente, David Winters had a strong connection to the stage history of West Side Story. He had played Baby John in the original Broadway production before appearing as Arab in the film. That made him one of the dancers who helped carry Jerome Robbins' choreography from theater into cinema. After West Side Story, Winters built a wide-ranging career as a dancer, choreographer, producer, and director. He worked in film, television, music productions, and stage-related projects. His life showed how a performer from one iconic musical could move into many areas of entertainment. David Winters died in 2019 at the age of 80. For fans, his role matters because West Side Story was built on movement. The dancers were not just decoration. They told the story with their bodies. Arab was one of the young men whose anger, loyalty, and fear moved through the choreography. Number 12 is Elliot Feld, who played Baby John. Elliot Feld played Baby John, the youngest and most vulnerable member of the Jets. Baby John is important because he shows that the gang is not made only of tough boys. Some of them are frightened. Some are trying to belong. Some are still children pretending to be hardened street fighters. Feld was the youngest of the featured Jets, and that youth gave Baby John a different emotional quality. He seemed less sure, less aggressive, and more exposed than the others. In a story about youth violence, Baby John reminds the audience just how young these boys really are. After West Side Story, Elliot Feld became far more than a former child performer. He developed into an important choreographer, dancer, teacher, and director in the ballet world. He founded companies and schools and spent his life shaping dance far beyond the movie. As of 2026, Elliot Feld is still alive. That makes him one of the surviving featured players from the original film. His survival is meaningful because he represents the dance legacy of West Side Story. The film is remembered for its stars, but it is also remembered for the bodies in motion, the leaps, the fights, the gestures, and the choreography that turns street conflict into art. Number 13 is Susan Oakes, who played Anybody's. Susan Oakes played Anybody's, the tomboyish outsider who desperately wants to be accepted by the Jets. Anybody's is one of the most interesting supporting characters in the original film. She is not treated as fully part of the gang. The boys dismiss her, insult her, and push her away, but she keeps trying to prove herself. She wants a place. She wants respect. She wants to be seen. In 1961, the character was often framed as a tomboy who wanted to run with the boys. In modern discussions, Anybody's has been re-examined through new lenses, especially after the 2021 adaptation gave the character more depth and contemporary gender identity context. But even in the original film, Anybody's carries emotional meaning. She represents the person who does not fit neatly anywhere. In a story about groups, territories, and belonging, she is another kind of outsider. Susan Oakes gave the role toughness and vulnerability. She made Anybody's memorable even without being one of the main romantic leads. As of 2026, Susan Oakes is still generally listed among the surviving notable performers from the original film. For fans, Anybody's matters because West Side Story is not only about Tony and Maria. It is about everyone trying to find a place in a divided world. Anybody's wanted to belong, and that desire still feels painfully human. Number 14 is Jose de Vega, who played Chino. Jose de Vega played Chino, the young man expected to marry Maria. Chino is one of the most tragic supporting characters in West Side Story because he begins as someone on the edge of the love story and ends as the person who completes the tragedy. He is not the romantic hero, but he is deeply connected to the world Maria comes from. He is chosen for her, approved by her community, and tied to the expectations around her. When Maria falls in love with Tony, Chino is pushed aside emotionally. But after Bernardo's death, his grief and anger become dangerous. He becomes the one who kills Tony, turning the story's cycle of violence into its final heartbreak. De Vega gave Chino a quiet, intense presence. He did not need to dominate the film. His importance grows slowly, then suddenly becomes devastating. Jose de Vega died in 1990 at the age of 56. His role remains essential because Chino is the final instrument of tragedy. He shows how grief, humiliation, and revenge can turn a young man into someone who destroys the very future everyone once imagined. Number 15 is Carol Dandria, who played Velma. Carol Dandria played Velma, one of the Jet girls and Ice's girlfriend. Velma is part of the social world of the Jets. She appears in the dance sequences, group scenes, and the film's larger choreography. Like many supporting dancers in West Side Story, her performance helped build the energy of the movie. The girls were not just background. They had style, attitude, and movement that made the world feel alive. Dandria had a rare connection to West Side Story because she appeared in both the original Broadway production and the 1961 film. That made her one of the performers who carried the show's original spirit from stage to screen. After West Side Story, she eventually stepped away from acting and later became a teacher, continuing to share performance knowledge in a different way. Carol Dandria died in 2025 at the age of 87. Her passing was another recent loss for fans of the original film and stage legacy. In 2026, Velma remains part of the film's dance memory. Dandria may not have been one of the biggest names on the poster, but she was part of the movement, rhythm, and youth that made West Side Story feel alive. Now, after going through the cast and creative figures one by one, the question becomes, who is still alive from West Side Story after 65 years? The biggest surviving stars from the original 1961 film are Richard Beymer, Russ Tamblyn, Rita Moreno, and George Chakiris. Tony is still with us. Riff is still with us. Anita is still with us. Bernardo is still with us. That fact is powerful because these are not small names. They are central faces of the film's love story, gang rivalry, dance legacy, and Oscar history. Several notable dancers and supporting performers connected to the original film are also still with us, including Elliot Feld, Susan Oakes, Gina Triconis, and Gus Triconis. Their names may not be as famous as the leads, but they carry the living memory of the choreography and ensemble work that made the movie unforgettable. But many beloved faces are gone. Natalie Wood, the unforgettable Maria, died in 1981. Simon Oakland, who played Shrank, died in 1983. Ned Glass, who played Doc, died in 1984. William Bramley, who played Officer Krupke, died in 1985. Tucker Smith, who played Ice, died in 1988. Jose de Vega, who played Chino, died in 1990. David Winters, who played Arab, died in 2019. Tony Mordente, who played Action, died in 2024. Carol Dandria, who played Velma, died in 2025. Marni Nixon, the singing voice behind Maria, died in 2016. Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise are also gone. That is why West Side Story feels different in 2026. When audiences first watched it, it was a musical about young love and young violence. Today, it is also a time capsule. We are watching actors and dancers from another era, some still alive, many now gone, preserved forever in color, music, and movement. Natalie Wood is still Maria on screen, even though she has been gone for decades. Richard Beamer is still Tony, singing about something coming. Russ Tamblyn is still Riff, leading the Jets with Restless Fire. Rita Moreno is still Anita, dancing and suffering with unforgettable force. George Chakiris is still Bernardo, proud and doomed. Tucker Smith is still telling the Jets to stay cool. Tony Mordente is still burning with Action's temper. Carol Dandria is still part of the Jet Girls' rhythm. Marni Nixon is still singing Maria's dreams. That is the strange magic of movies. Real people grow older. Real people leave Hollywood. Real people suffer, change, and pass away. But the film holds them in one perfect, painful moment. Tony and Maria never grow old. Riff and Bernardo never escape the rumble. Anita never forgets the cost of hatred. Chino never outruns the final tragedy. The Jets and Sharks never stop circling each other under the music. And the songs still carry the story. Maria still sounds like a name turned into a prayer. Tonight still feels like young love trying to stop time. America still burns with pride, frustration, and wit. Somewhere still dreams of a world where people can finally live without hatred. Officer Krupke still turns social failure into dark comedy. Cool still turns anger into controlled movement. And the final silence still hurts. West Side Story lasted because it was never only about romance. It was about belonging. It was about prejudice. It was about youth trapped inside adult failures. It was about people being told where they could live, who they could love, and how much space they were allowed to take. It was about a city changing around young people who did not know how to survive that change. That is why it still connects after 65 years. The world is different now, but the feelings are not. Young people still fight to belong. Communities still clash. Love still crosses lines that others try to draw. Anger still destroys what it cannot understand. And somewhere, people still dream of a place where they can simply be safe. In 2026, West Side Story is both a classic and a memorial. It is a memorial to Natalie Wood's Maria, a memorial to the dancers we lost, a memorial to the old Hollywood musical era, a memorial to Jerome Robbins' choreography and Robert Wise's direction, a memorial to voices, bodies, faces, and artists who gave everything to a film that would outlive them. But it is also a living story, because Richard Beamer is still here, Russ Tamblyn is still here, Rita Moreno is still here, George Chakiris is still here, Elliot Feld and other surviving performers are still here. They are living links to the original 1961 film, carrying memories of the rehearsals, the dancing, the pressure, the music, and the moment when West Side Story became cinema history. So who is still alive after 65 years? A few major stars remain. Many beloved faces are gone. But the story has not faded. The streets still echo with snaps. The dancers still leap through the frame. Maria still waits on the balcony. Tony still believes something is coming. Anita still sings with fire. Bernardo still stands with pride. Riff still leads the Jets. And somewhere beyond the tragedy, the music still searches for a place where love can survive. After 65 years, West Side Story remains one of the greatest musicals ever made. The cast has changed. Time has taken many of them. But every time the film begins again, the stars we lost return for one more night in New York, one more dance, one more song, and one more dream of somewhere.